जय दीन दयाल हरे। तुम करता तुम ही कारण, तुम करता तुम ही कारण, परम कृपाल हरे। जय दीन दयाल हरे। जय कृष्ण गोपाल हरे। जय दीन दयाल हरे। रथ हाके रणभूमि में और कर्म योग के मरम बताए। रथ हाके रणभूमि में और कर्म योग के मरम बताए। अजर अमर है परम सत्य यूं काया के सुख दुख समझाए। अजर अमर है परम सत्य यूं काया के सुख दुख समझाए। सखा सारथी शरणागत की, सखा सारथी शरणागत की सदा प्रतिपाल करे। जय दीन दयाल हरे। जय कृष्ण गोपाल हरे। जय दीन दयाल हरे। जय कृष्ण गोपाल हरे। जय दीन दयाल हरे। श्याम के रंग में रंग गई मेरा रस, खान तो रस की खान हुए हैं। श्याम के रंग में रंग गई मेरा रस, खान तो रस की खान हुए हैं। जग से आंखें बंद करी तो सूरदास ने दर्श किए हैं। जग से आंखें बंद करी तो सूरदास ने दर्श किए हैं। मात यशोदा ब्रज नारी के, मात यशोदा ब्रज नारी के माखन चोर हरे। जय दीन दयाल हरे। जय कृष्ण गोपाल 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 हरे, जय दीन दयाल हरे। तुम करता तुम ही कारण, तुम करता तुम ही कारण, तुम करता तुम ही कारण, परम कृपाल हरे, जय दीन दयाल हरे, जय कृष्ण गोपाल हरे, जय दीन दयाल हरे, जय कृष्ण गोपाल हरे, जय दीन दयाल हरे। सीताराम 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 कहिए, जाहि विधि राखे राम ताहि विधि रहिए। सीताराम 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 कहिए, जाहि विधि राखे राम ताहि विधि रहिए। सीताराम 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 कहिए, जाहि विधि राखे राम ताहि विधि रहिए। सीताराम 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 कहिए, सीताराम 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 कहिए, जाहि विधि राखे राम ताहि विधि राखे राम ताहि विधि रहिए। सीताराम 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 कहिए, जाहि विधि राखे राम ताहि विधि रहिए। आशा एक राम जी से दूजी आशा छोड़ दे, आशा एक राम जी से दूजी आशा छोड़ दे, आशा एक राम जी से दूजी आशा छोड़ दे। नाता एक राम जी से, नाता एक राम जी से दूजा नाता तोड़ दे। साधु संग राम रंग अंग अंग रंगिए, साधु संग राम रंग अंग अंग रंगिए। जाहि विधि राखे राम ताहि विधि रहिए। सीताराम 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 कहिए, जाहि विधि राखे राम ताहि विधि रहिए। जिंदगी की डोर सौंप हाथ दीननाथ के, जिंदगी की डोर सौंप हाथ दीननाथ के। महलों में राखे चाहे, महलों में राखे चाहे, झोपड़ी में वास दे। धन्यवाद निर्विवाद राम राम कहिए, धन्यवाद निर्विवाद राम राम कहिए। जाहि विधि राखे राम ताहि विधि रहिए। सीताराम 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 कहिए, जाहि विधि राखे राम ताहि विधि रहिए। मुख में हो राम 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 सेवा हाथ में, मुख में हो राम 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 सेवा हाथ में। तू अकेला नहीं प्यारे, तू अकेला नहीं प्यारे, राम तेरे साथ में। विधि का विधान जान हानि लाभ सही है, विधि का विधान जान अनिलाभ सहिए जाई विधि राखे राम ताहि विधि रहिए। सीताराम 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 कहिए, सीताराम 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 कहिए। जाई विधि राखे राम जाहि विधि राखे राम ताहि विधि रहिए। सीताराम 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 कहिए, जाहि विधि राखे राम ताहि विधि रहिए। जाहि विधि राखे राम ताहि विधि रहिए। जाहि विधि राखे राम ताहि विधि रहिए।
Welcome to Satsang. It's so beautiful as slowly, slowly the ashram is opening. Slowly, slowly, of course, maintaining our safety, our protection, our distances. Nonetheless, we are beginning to be able to come together again in the same physical space. And after almost a year of speaking just into the camera and feeling you all, but having to see you only inside, actually, again now having beautiful souls here with us in the garden, socially distant, safe, few, but nonetheless being able to just begin to start to refigure out what coming together is like in a way that's safe, a way that's healthy, that protects each other, especially that protects the more vulnerable members of our community and society, but that also is again in person. So it's beautiful to look out and actually see faces again after just the camera. So with that, yes, let us begin.
The first question here is, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Is it possible to incorporate aspects of different religions into your daily practice and still find God? If I must choose one, can I change from my original religion, which I hardly practice anymore?
I think, Induji, start again, because even though I can hear you, I think it's not going into the camera, so all of our sisters and brothers who are watching this online, they won't be able to hear you.
Right, we do it again.
Okay.
So, is it possible to incorporate aspects of different religions into your daily practice and still find God? If I must choose one, can I change from my original religion, which I hardly practice anymore, to follow the teachings and techniques taught by Sanatam Dharma?
Beautiful. So it's a multi-part question. The first aspect of can we incorporate aspects of different religions into our lives? Absolutely. The idea that religions are boxes with four walls and a top and a bottom, and we're stuck inside and choose your box, or you're born into your box and that's it. It's not only a fallacy, but it's a tragedy. Because religions are ways of knowing God, ways of connecting to God. And at their core, at their purest, at the deepest level, religions actually are that which connect us to the truth of who we are. And each of them, although God is one, although that truth is one, although soul and spirit is one, they're all different ways of getting into the same stream. Different languages, different books, different types of stories, different ways of worship. But ultimately that stream of truth, of life, of love, of divinity is one. There's not a Christian river of truth and a Muslim river of truth and a Hindu or Sanatam Dharma river of truth. There's just a river of truth. But there's different ways of getting into that. And so yes, the first part is, of course, absolutely you can incorporate different aspects. I know many people who incorporate different aspects of their religion, of different religions. Particularly this tends to happen with people who are born in the West, born into a Judeo-Christian tradition, either as Jewish or as Christian, but who feel very deeply touched and inspired by either the Hindu tradition or the Buddhist tradition, or maybe both. And that's beautiful. And there's no reason that one must give up one in order to have another. You know, I share very frequently actually that on a personal level, for me, I was raised in a Jewish family. I was raised in the Jewish religion and always felt very, very deeply connected to the Jewish people, to the Jewish history, to the culture. But the way that it was spoken about and taught and practiced in the community that I was raised in was much more about the community and the culture than about God. So when I came to India and I stood on the banks of Ganga in a place that was undeniably Hindu, in the midst of a ceremony, the Arti ceremony that is a Hindu ceremony, and I experienced God, it fell right into a place that had been not yet occupied. It wasn't like a Hindu version of God came in and kicked a Jewish version of God out. It was an experience of God without religion, without borders or boundaries. God is infinite. Practitioners of different religions may have different ways that we dress, different types of habits that we use with how we look. We shave, we don't shave, we cut our hair, we don't cut our hair, we wear different colors, different head coverings. But God isn't wearing orange robes or a yarmulke or having a beard or having a bald head. God is infinite. And so, of course, in different traditions, we have different practices. But God is infinite. So for me, that experience of God just filled a place that up until that moment had been not filled. But it didn't kick anything out. And that's been really the same experience that I've heard so many people share who have adopted aspects of particularly Eastern traditions, Hinduism, Buddhism, into their Judeo-Christian life. So I would say, since God is infinite and God is boundless, why try to create borders and boundaries? Why try to say, well, this doesn't fit in my new box? That was my old box. Let's go boxless in our own minds. Doesn't matter what path we walk. Most of us walk the path we were born into. Not all of us. Some of us find a new path. But whatever path we're on, it's about walking that path to the best that we can. And then with regard to the idea of, can I embrace Sanatam Dharma? Of course you can. Sanatam Dharma doesn't mean convert to our box. Sanatam Dharma, the Sanskrit traditional way of referring to what we call Hinduism, literally means an eternal way of life. Sanatan means eternal. Dharma is, well, it's more than a way of life, but for the moment we'll say a way of life. A way of embodying righteousness, integrity, our core being, the truth of who we are. So it's an eternal way of embodying the truth of who we are, of experiencing the truth of who we are, of being the truth of who we are, living the truth of who we are. And that truth, there's not a Hindu way you are, and a Muslim way you are, and a Jewish and Christian way you are. The way you are is just divine. So, yes, by all means, sure, embrace Sanatam Dharma. But don't feel like that means you have to abandon or cut yourself out from wherever you were before. Just allow your experience of the divine to keep expanding and expanding and expanding. One of my favorite stories of this is the story of Ramakrishna Paramhans, who of course was born and raised in a Hindu tradition, had his first powerful experiences in the Kali temple in what's now West Bengal. But after he had those experiences, he thought, well, there's other traditions. And he then started diving into other religions to see, can he experience the same God through this path of Christianity, through this path of Islam? And he found that, yes, of course he could. So as our sages and our mystics and our rishis and our saints tell us, the paths all take you to the same place.
Can a person transform oneself into a good human being on his own, or one needs a true master to attain spiritual stability?
So, it depends what you mean by good human being. If by good human being we mean abiding by the 10 Commandments, whether it's the 10 Commandments of the Bible, whether it's what we call the 10 Commandments of Hinduism or a yogic way of life, our yamas and niyamas of the 8 limbs of yoga, I think you could do that on your own. I think when we're talking about everything ranging from thou shalt not murder to thou shalt not commit adultery to truthfulness to non-stealing to all of this, you can do that on your own. That's just a matter of focus and attention, commitment, discipline, niyam, literally yam and niyam, do's and don'ts, our habits within ourselves, within the world. A guru is not someone who turns us into good human beings, although that's certainly a byproduct. If you find a guru and you weren't necessarily someone who identified as being such a good human being, if you didn't necessarily follow the commandments, certainly a guru will help you do that, but not because a guru is going to give you commandments and hold your hand to the fire of them, or somehow punish you if you break one. A guru literally is one who removes darkness and brings light. That is what the word guru means. The remover of darkness and therefore the bringer of light. That darkness is not a darkness of being a bad human being. It's not that the guru removes the darkness of badness and gives you the light of goodness. We think about ignorance and wisdom much more than good and bad in Sanatam Dharma. People who engage in what we would call bad behavior do so not because they are bad people, but because they're living in illusion. Because they identify as this physical body, as its experiences, as its desires, as what it does, as what happens to it. And when we do that, then we suffer. Because we are richer than some, poorer than some. We tend not to pay attention to those we're richer than. We only tend to pay attention to those we're poorer than. We are more successful than some, but again, we don't pay much attention to that. We pay attention to who we are less successful from. We're constantly comparing, constantly wanting more that we don't have, constantly feeling that we don't have enough when we identify as this body. I don't have enough. I'm not enough. I'm not pretty enough, handsome enough, rich enough, successful enough, beautiful enough, funny enough, popular enough, smart enough. We're constantly seeing where we fall short. So we suffer. And then we bring suffering to others. Whether it's because we become angry and violent, whether it's because we then steal, whether it's because we simply exude so much misery and frustration that we are like walking bad vibration factories. But we bring that suffering then onto others. But that's due to ignorance. It's not that you are a bad person and you need to become a good person. You simply need to realize the truth, that you're not the body, that you are the soul, the spirit, that you are love, truth, consciousness, infinity, perfection. And when you realize that, then you stop constantly looking here and there at who's more beautiful than you are, or who's smarter than you are, or who's richer than you are, or who has a nicer shawl than you have and you want it, who has a nicer looking spouse than you have and you want it, this is constantly, right, how we move through the world. Why can't I have that or have this? That one's so lucky. So what the guru does is the guru shines the light of truth, with which we can see the truth of who we are. And when you can see who you are, then you stop suffering. And when you stop suffering, you stop bringing suffering on others. And so the life becomes one of goodness, of joy, of peace, of love, of light. Not because you have become good, or that you're following instructions better, or that you have more willpower or discipline, but because the very nature of how you understand the self has changed. Imagine, let's say you've decided that you are going on a diet and you're not going to eat any more laddus. And you're sitting at a table with friends and you're very hungry, okay? You skipped breakfast, you skipped lunch. You haven't had anything since maybe, let's say, an apple in the morning. Now it's dinner time. You're really hungry. They come around with a plate of laddus. You're starving. What do? You eat so many of them. Or if you don't, you're miserable inside, right? You're sweating inside. You want them so badly. And there's this war inside you. Gotta have the laddus. No, no, no laddus. Yes, yes, laddus. No, laddus. Right? And you're constantly fighting. Now imagine that you had a great breakfast. You had a great lunch. In fact, you even had a great late afternoon, early evening, very healthy snack. Now you're sitting with friends right after your beautiful snack, which followed your beautiful lunch, which followed your beautiful breakfast. Now they come around with a plate of laddus. Now you're not interested. Neither do you eat something that you've committed not to, nor do you have to have a war inside about not eating it. It's no longer a matter of willpower or discipline, or being good or bad. You're full. You literally are full. There is no sense within you of yearning for a laddu because you are full. And this is what the Guru does, is it's not about giving you better willpower or better discipline or helping you follow your, commitments to be good. It's about helping you see that truth of who you are in such a way that you're so full, that those things we would consider bad, untruth, violence, murder, adultery, right? It depends which 10 commandments we're looking at. But whatever the list of commandments may be, none of them holds any pull for us. We're not looking to steal. We're not looking to be dishonest. We're not looking to hoard. We're not looking to be violent because we're full. And we're full of truth and love and awareness and consciousness, of light, of wisdom. That's what the Guru gives.
The next question is, for the common poor person of India who finds it difficult to fill his stomach, how can he reach the devotion of God?
For the common person, empty stomach. We could say, if you look at it internationally, poor people, people who don't have, how do they reach that devotion of God? Well, our scriptures are full, and not just our Vedic scriptures, but the scriptures actually of all of the religions where I've even seen the scriptures or learned about the scriptures in any way, are full of stories of prophets, of rishis. They may use different words in different religious texts, but are full of them. The simplest people who have reached God. Shabri ko dekho. Poor, common village woman, but so immersed in love for God. And this is the beauty of devotion, is it's not what I have. It's not what I don't have in the outer world. Yes, I may be hungry. Yes, it may be raining and I don't have shelter, and by no means is that an okay thing. Our infrastructure, our policy, our governments, individually, all of us as people with the luxury to choose how we spend our money, that is our responsibility to help lift people out of poverty. But that's a different issue. The issue from the perspective of those who are in poverty is the awareness that the grace of God does not come in the form of material items. And I think that's probably why we're given so many incredible examples of these rishis, of these saints, and why in the Ramayana, right? Why does Ram go to Shabri? It's such a beautiful, beautiful story. On the one hand, we have Shorpanaka, right? Ravan's sister, this demoness. But as Puja Swamiji says, she's made herself to be Miss Universe. She appears in front of Lord Ram as Miss Universe with all of her, glamour and guile and all of that. He's not interested. Not interested at all. And yet Shabri, this poor, simple village woman, no makeup, no jewelry, nothing, but so full of love for God, khud chal ke gaye unke paas. He went to her. It wasn't even a matter of he accepted her. He showed up on her doorstep. And it's one of my favorite stories because if you doubt the presence of God, if you don't feel like you have enough, or if you think that somehow God is partial to those who have more, or that God would rather have, people offer gold to a murti than offer food to the poor. Just go back to the scriptures. The scriptures are full of story after story after story of God choosing. God in his different forms, whether as Lord Krishna, whether as Lord Ram, whether as the different incarnations, consciously, purposely choosing to be with those who are simple, in many cases who are poor, but who are so devoted. And in fact, on just a practical level, I've seen it with my own eyes so much when I first came to India. One of the things that touched me so deeply was the generosity, but generosity born out of a connection to God, out of an experience, an internal experience of their cup runneth over, of the people who were so poor, people who had nothing, people who were so far below the Western standards of poverty, but people who just wanted to share. I remember from the beginning people would say to me, "Oh, come home for a meal." And I was taught early on, don't eat out, don't eat out. If you want to stay healthy, just don't eat out. So I would politely say, no, thank you. And then they would say, "Oh, but you must come for a cold drink." For our sisters and brothers not from India who are watching this, in India, a cold drink means a soda pop. So it's Coke or Pepsi or Sprite. It doesn't mean a drink that you've put ice cubes in. It means soda pop. So they would say, "You must at least come for a cold drink." Now, I was never a soda drinker, even in America. Never drank soda, never liked it. So I would say, no, thank you. But of course, in their minds, you can't possibly be American and not drink soda. So they thought that I was just being polite, and so inevitably they would send, one of the children into the marketplace to buy a big bottle of Coke. And of course, then I had to drink it because they had brought it. But what touched me so deeply was that feeling that, their whole day's budget for vegetables just went on that Coke to give to me. They would now eat rice and lentils. But they were so happy to give me this Coke. They were so happy. Even the Coke I didn't want. Even the Coke I was drinking just to make them happy. But it was such an extraordinary experience of love for God and love for God in the form of all. That teaching that says, Atiti Devo Bhava. That experience that the guest is God. So literally in me, they were seeing God. And in their minds and their hearts, they were having this experience to serve God. They weren't giving soda pop to some random young American girl. They were giving soda pop to God in the form of this guest who had arrived. And that was a spiritual experience for them. So, absolutely, even when the stomach is empty, you can be connected to God. However, it's very important in conclusion to just circle back to the fact that for those of us whose stomachs are not empty, and those of us who have the resources, the simple fact that people can experience a connection to God with an empty stomach doesn't mean that their stomach should stay empty. Doesn't mean that we should rationalize allowing their stomachs to stay empty because, they can still be connected to God. It is our duty to serve them. Can we see in them that same divine, that same guest? Because the truth is, whoever shows up on your doorstep is the atiti, is the guest. And whether it's your literal doorstep of your home, or whether it's the doorstep of your mind, you turn on the news, you see poor people. Well, assume those people have just shown up on your doorstep because they have. The doorstep of your mind, the doorstep of your awareness. You see a news article, you see a post on Facebook, you hear about it. You walk by poor people as you walk down the road. They've shown up on your doorstep. When we say the guest, it doesn't just mean someone who arrives with a suitcase. It means the one. The one who's there. The one who is there right now, the one who has arrived, the one who is here. Whether that one is here on the road as I walk past, here in my mind and my eyes on my computer screen or on my TV or in my newspaper. They are here. So it is our spiritual duty as well as our dharmic duty, as well as our karmic duty, as well as our duty just as theoretically good human beings, to help them. And then maybe we can also experience God. Because every enlightened master I've known, every deep teacher I've known, has basically been very clear about the fact that service of others is the most natural and most powerful outcome in action of a deep spiritual practice. So if your spiritual practice is real, you're going to stand up off that cushion, off that mat, asking, who can I serve? How can I serve? How can I help? How can I be of service? So that's then our duty to them. Have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful evening if you're here in India. Beautiful morning or day wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you on Friday for meditation. And we'll see you on Saturday again for Satsang.
ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम्